Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton, the 45th Governor of Arkansas, Mike Beebe, and State Representative Kathy Webb.
Good morning, President Clinton, Governor Beebe, and guests. Thank you for being here today. It's an exciting day for Arkansas and the Clinton Climate Initiative as we continue to move forward in the work to halt climate change. I'm involved in this effort and this work today because of my role with the Governor's Commission on Global Warming. When Governor Beebe created this commission, he charged us with finding solutions so we can do our share in the battle against global warming. On October 30th, the Commission presented its report to Governor Beebe after almost 1 year of intense efforts, with 42 of the 54 recommendations being either unanimous or with one dissenting vote. Not bad for a highly diverse and highly opinionated group of people. Serious discussion and implementation of these recommendations will put Arkansas in the lead on this issue and will equip all of us to engage in this critical work. Governor Beebe and President Clinton know that it takes all of us working together to limit climate change, both big ideas implemented on the national and international level and things done on a very local level, within our state, within our community, within our individual homes and businesses. And that's what CCI is about, practical and measurable solutions. This partnership will put Arkansas in a better position to take some of these steps. So it is with great honor that I present to you our governor, who again today is demonstrating his commitment and his leadership on this effort, Governor Mike Beebe.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for your service. Mr. President, welcome home. We have, over the course of the last 18 or so months, seen Arkansas continue to grow as a leader in green jobs. Private investment bringing alternative energy manufacturers to Arkansas, 3 foreign windmill manufacturers, either blade manufacturers or turbine manufacturers, located now in Arkansas, providing thousands of jobs. At the risk of whetting the appetite of the press and promising I'm not going to tell you any more than what I'm about to say, we're working on a 4th one for another part of the state. Arkansas has carved out a niche in that manufacturing process. They tell us we don't have necessarily the type of wind or the consistency of wind that the Plain States or West Texas may have to, I think, sustain the type of broad-based wind energy that some of those places have. But what we can do, even if we don't have that type of wind, what we can do is we can provide all of the jobs and produce all of the materials necessary for those other states, and we'll sell it to them, with Arkansas folks creating quality products. But we're not just stopping there. The Biosciences Institute, a collaboration between the University of Arkansas, Arkansas State University, the Med Center, and Children's Hospital, while they do a significant amount of bioscience research in the medical field, has now provided cutting-edge research in sustainable and alternative energy. We set aside significant amounts of money in Arkansas to try to jumpstart entrepreneurs and further develop biomass fuels, not corn-based, which we know now may be highly counterproductive for significant segments of our society, but cellulosic based. I don't know if you realize it or not, but we are able to make gasoline, not just ethanol, but gasoline out of treetops and tree stumps and switchgrass, rice straw, rice hulls, cotton stalks, even algae. So whether it's green ethanol or whether it's green gasoline, Arkansas can, should, and will, in my opinion, be the Silicon Valley of cellulosic alternative fuels. Not just there, we have two major philanthropic organizations, Winrock and Heifer, which are leading the way in sustainable and renewable energy. And nobody can doubt the commitment that Lee Scott has and that Walmart has really pushed on green and sustainability. And they've got the power and the size to be able to make those things happen on a grand scale. So I am very proud of what we've done to this point and where we are going, but even more excited about the partnership today announced between the state of Arkansas and the Clinton Climate Initiative. We're the second state. Pennsylvania has had some degree of association. We are the second state, but ours is in a much larger scale, notwithstanding the fact they've got a few more people than we do. We are in this together, people. This whole planet now is so inextricably tied together. Our people are so tied together that whatever happens in one part of the state, one part of the country, indeed one part of the world, affects us all. We will be able with this partnership to access CCI's purchasing alliance with suppliers, which can provide green building materials at discounted rates, saving us money in the procurement as we work toward retrofitting public buildings for better efficiency. And also access to other CCI resources, which will, among other things, establish baseline greenhouse gas emissions, set reduction goals, track effectiveness, and allow us to utilize some of their best practices. Most importantly, the state of Arkansas can indeed be a player on the world stage. It's significant for three very important reasons. The economics are obvious. If you create the kinds of jobs that green energy can create, just think of the amount of people who will have an opportunity to support themselves and their families. The environmental aspects are so obvious they need not be recounted, but we all know that sustainable, green, renewable energy environmentally is what we owe our posterity, our children, and our grandchildren. And lastly, something that sometimes we don't emphasize enough, it's a national security issue. If we are dependent on our own energy, whether it's renewable, sustainable, American-grown energy, or whether it's conservation and therefore the reduction of the need for energy, we are less dependent on parts of the world that don't like us very much and places that we don't necessarily want to be. We've already had success here on the local level. We have people in the audience here today from the Bryant School District. Two schools in Bryant, Bethel Middle School and Hurricane Creek Elementary, have opened recently as LEED certified buildings. In 2007 alone, the two buildings combined for $75,000 in energy savings. It's projected over the life of those buildings that the total cost savings will be near the entire cost of construction of both buildings. This process is incredibly viable, and I'm very grateful to the President for his leadership and to the Clinton Climate Initiative for their leadership. And I'm very, I think, proud is the best word you can use, to have it associated right here in Little Rock and in Arkansas. And we're very grateful that the President continues to provide leadership, not just here, but around the world. And lastly, I just want to recognize how some of this really got started. Through a Capstone project of a student here at the Clinton School of Public Service. Incidentally, Mr. President, it's a wonderful school. J.D. Lowery, who worked in my campaign and worked for me until he decided that he didn't want to be stuck with me for the rest of his life. He wanted to go back and get a better education, so he's now a student at Clinton School. Helped create, through his Capstone project, this entire partnership agreement. So, JD, where are you? Wave. Thank you, sir. So to all the youngsters here from Bryant, to all the young people that are so dedicated and committed from across, I guess, the whole world in the city here, to all the leaders that are represented throughout the audience here, to everybody who understands the significance and importance of this, help me welcome our native son and the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I want to thank Governor Beebe for his extraordinary leadership in this area. When he was first preparing to take office, he told me he wanted to take this issue on, and I'm really grateful. And I want to thank you, Representative Kathy Webb. That's a source of great pride to me. Some of you know that Hillary and I were very close to Kathy's mother and father, and I've admired her for years. I'm delighted she's in the legislature, and I have to say I'm not at all surprised that she's taking the lead on this. I thank all the other legislators who are here, Senator Broadway and others, and Mr. Susky, the members of the Public Service Commission and the staff, Maria Haley and the people here who work on economic development, Martha Jane Murray with our Clinton Climate Initiative. And I too want to thank J.D. Lowery. I should say a little more about that. First, I'm very proud of the Clinton School, and I think Skip Rutherford's doing a good job, and I imagine he's with his family today, just lost his 110-year-old grandmother, and some of you are probably here that she came recently and talked about her life. And it's probably the last time many of us will ever have a chance to hear from someone who was born when William McKinley was president and was older than my daughter when the Depression started. So I thank Skip and I thank the Clinton School, but all of the students there have to do a practical project. And he worked with our climate initiative in Australia and saw what we were trying to do and got the idea to propose this. But he found a very willing ear in the governor's office because Mike Beebe was talking to me about this stuff, I'm telling you, before he was sworn in. And let me just begin with the obvious. I have done this work for years. When I left office, I left the presidency, I left an order on the books that within 5 years, over 20% of our vehicles had to be totally clean burning vehicles. It was totally ignored. Everybody ignores these orders when the price goes down. So the price of oil was $140, everybody cared about it. Now it's dropped to $50, everybody didn't. Let me just say a couple things. Number one, an enormous number of things that reduce greenhouse gas emissions are economical today. They're economical at any conceivable oil price. And coal's dropped, but the reason they've all dropped is because the economy's down. As soon as the economy comes down, if we're just as reliant on foreign oil as we are today, the price will explode again. You want to keep the price of oil down? Don't use it. So the fact that neither one of them mentioned that it's going to be harder to do this because the price of energy is low right now compared to where it was is a good sign. The second point I want to make is no one is proposing to do anything in Arkansas that is not good business. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't create jobs and save money over the long run. I have always believed that this is the greatest opportunity we have had since we mobilized for World War II to completely redo our economy. And if we do this right, I think you'll have more growth than you did when I was president and more new jobs if we do it right. And that's very important now, because we now have the most contractionary economy with the risk of deflation with dropping asset values that we've had since the 1930s. And we didn't fully escape it until World War II started because we didn't have a way to reorganize our economy. Energy gives us that way. And let me just give you all some examples because I know everybody's going to be worried about the economy.
In 1998, 10 years ago, Al Gore and I helped to develop the first climate change treaty. Nearly everybody else in Washington was against it, except for the environmental advocates. They supported us and didn't think we went far enough. And the Senate voted 98-0 against the treaty before I could send it to them. It was the only bill I ever lost when I was president before I sent it to the Congress. And they had this idea, oh, the world will come to an end if we reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then when President Bush was elected, he agreed with the Senate, and even when half the Senate changed their mind, they did rather rapidly when they realized they'd been wrong. It was too late, and we got positions sort of out there somewhere, and no other country wanted to take a flying leap in a place where America wouldn't go. So the Chinese and the Indians, when I would go around there and work on my AIDS projects and try to talk to them about energy, in the beginning looked at me like I was nuts. Now what's happened? Well, 170 countries signed, this is the importance of this announcement. This is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. 170 countries signed the first climate change treaty. It required all signatories to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions at a certain level below their 1990 emissions by 2012. 10 or 15 of them didn't have to make any effort because they'd been part of the old communist bloc and their economies collapsed, and they collapsed at the right time after 1990, so they couldn't possibly get back there. They had to make no effort. They got a pass. So there were about 155 countries that had to try. You know how many are going to make it? 6. 8 at the outside. But if you look at the ones that will make it, Denmark, United Kingdom, Sweden, just to take 3, they outperformed the American economy in this decade. They had more jobs. They did not have rising inequality. Middle-class incomes rose. Poor people's incomes rose. Everybody went forward together. Why? Because they had a source of new employment in creating a new energy economy. And if Arkansas is ahead of the rest of the country on this, it will give you the best chance you will ever have to leap over where we have always been in the wage race, the income race, and the race for the future. And it doesn't matter what the price of oil is right now. I am telling you, if we do this right, it will be amazing. Now, second point I want to make is that we have to do it right. Remember, 170 countries signed the deal. 155 had to try to meet it. Only 6, maximum 8, will meet it out of the 155. Were the others dishonest when they signed? Were they lazy? Were they stupid? By and large, that's not true. By and large, they were intelligent, enlightened people who work hard and tried. They did not know how to do it. And all of you should follow this closely now, because it really matters how. If you see a headline that says we're going to stop the housing crisis, ask how. If you see a headline that says we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, ask how. That's what I spend all my time on now. I noticed when I was in politics, people always ask you, did you pass a bill on X and how much money did you put in it? They never ask, how were you actually going to achieve the result you sought to achieve? And in the end, that's what matters most. And so what we will try to do is to facilitate the how. This grew out of, when we started this climate change project, we started working with 40 big cities around the world. London and New York contacted me and asked if we'd work with 40 cities on 6 continents, and we started just working on building retrofits. And if you look at, I'm very proud that Heifer next door and the Clinton Foundation are the only 2 national headquarters anywhere in America that are next to each other, that are both Platinum LEED buildings, have the highest rating in energy efficiency. Our utility bills are much, much lower as a result. And we use less energy. And we can even do better, and I hope we will. But I've been in places, I gave a speech in the Netherlands a couple years ago in a huge land developer's corporate headquarters that's a 0 emission building. No net emissions. I'm not talking about they bought trees somewhere else. I'm saying they didn't have any carbon emissions. I was in Greece last year, in Athens, Greece. We don't normally think of them as on the cutting edge of climate change, but a corporation there built a building with 0 carbon emissions. using the most efficient lighting, the most efficient heating, the most efficient temperature controls, the most efficient glass, lots of other things. But they're all making money. These were private companies. They didn't do this for their health. They believed it was the morally right thing to do, but they made money doing it. That's the only way we can make this go. So what can our foundation do? Well, first, Governor Beebe mentioned one thing. We have negotiated on behalf of 1,100 cities in America pretty steep discounts in the major environmental technologies that buildings need to have, either when you're building new buildings or you're retrofitting. And those discounts will be available here when you start, and I think you're going to start with the public buildings. Secondly, we think a lot about how to finance this. Let me just give you an example. New York City Public Housing Authority is one of our projects. It's 11% of all the public housing in America. The buildings are old, the roofs are flat. And we're doing a makeover with them. We're going to put in green roofs, new glass, better lighting, and where the system will handle it, more automatic temperature and lighting controls, and some other things. We pay a premium to an energy service organization to come in and guarantee those savings. They say if you do these things, you'll have at least, let's say, 30% savings. If you pay them a premium, they'll guarantee it. If they guarantee it, you can finance a bank loan or just use public dollars as a backup, and you pay the loan off solely from utility savings, so that there's no new financial drain on the Public Housing Authority. Or the 660 elementary schools in Paris, France, where we're doing this. So we got to get the financing right, which is why I'm glad the Public Service Commission's here, because we may need a little help from them. But it makes a huge difference. Nobody loses money. Another thing we do is look at other opportunities. For example, in Mexico City, one of the biggest cities in America, in the world, not just in the Americas, in the whole world, we're trying to help them close their landfills. Because landfills are an enormous source of greenhouse gases. They emit methane gases, and that's 23 times as powerful as carbon dioxide. And we hope we will develop a plan to be able to finance it where they can separate out all the metals in their landfills and recycle them and compact all the organic material into biomass and either make cellulosic ethanol, as the governor was talking about, or generate clean electricity. So I long for the day when there will not be another landfill in America but coal choose all the waste for fuel or electricity. I long for that day. And again, this is good business. In Australia, we're working with them and some people in India and some people out in the western part of America to build huge solar plants where you have massive reflectors, you heat water to generate electricity. In Pennsylvania, we're looking at whether they have the land formations necessary to store carbon dioxide generated by coal plants in a way that won't come back to the surface. 99% of all the places on Earth, because of carbon dioxide in the ground, it'll just come back up and you haven't done anything. And the only really successful large-scale storage today is off the North Sea, being done by Norway. But we're looking at it. If we can find it, it'd be a good thing, because 51% of all the electricity in America is generated by coal. So if we didn't build any more coal plants, we couldn't meet our goals unless we could figure out something to do with the ones that are there now. But let me come back to where I started. Last year, Goldman Sachs commissioned a survey which said, I want y'all to listen to this, that the world needs to cut its greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2050, which most people think is just impossible because the population is slated to grow from 6.5 to 9 billion. Now, this is why Arkansas can be a lab. They said that if the United States, India, China, and Russia, just those 4 countries, not mentioning Europe at all, were simply to reach Japanese levels of energy efficiency, that would take the entire world 25% of the way home to an 80% reduction. Let's think about that. Let me just tell you one other thing. For any given investment An investment in making buildings more energy efficient will generate 6 times as many jobs as spending the same amount of money to build a new coal-fired power plant. 6 times as many jobs. So we're here to do something really good. And our foundation will do is try to figure out the how. But I hope that everybody, the legislature, the Public Service Commission, the utilities in Arkansas, nobody's going to be asked to lose money on this deal. Everybody's going to be asked to make money in a different way. But you think of it, we could retrofit every school, every higher education building. We got a special college project, and we're working on a lot of college campuses now. None of them are paying any more money to do this. We're financing it all out of utility savings. They just work the financing out so they can do that. If every county courthouse, if every city hall, and every state building in Arkansas were to do that, and then if we had if either the governor gets a whole lot of money out of the stimulus package for it, or we could get the utilities really gung-ho for it, you could do all the housing. The mayor of Houston, Texas, was my deputy secretary of energy, Bill White. Houston is the oil capital of America. They now have the highest environmental standards for new buildings of any city in the United States. And they have retrofitted the 20% of the houses in Houston that belong to the lowest income working people. And he has an 85% approval rate. Nobody lost any money, and people struggling to make a living, barely surviving on minimum wages, all of a sudden have more money in their pocket. And everybody came out ahead. So I think, as I said, I think what the governor and Kathy and apparently the whole state government want to do is really important. But no state has undertaken to do this. And it's really important because Arkansas's, let me give you one other little fact, I don't want to bore you with all the facts, but almost 80% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions are generated in urban areas, just because that's where the people are. And they tend to be richer. And the richer you are, the more you tend to use energy and generate emissions. New York City's emissions are about the same as the state of Arkansas. But no one has figured out how to have a strategy that benefits not only big urban areas like Pulaski County, but medium-sized and small towns and rural areas. And there's something in this energy thing for everybody if we do it right. You worried about whether the Delta is going to be adversely affected more than the rest of the state by the economic downturn? It'll be less so if you have a comprehensive building retrofit program. If you can get a few more plants making components for windmills. If you can do 1,000 other things I can tell you. And I hope I haven't gone into too much detail here, but I live with the how. All that matters is that we find a way to do this that is good economics, and that we not be trapped into thinking that we can't do something tomorrow because we couldn't do it yesterday. If I hear one more supposed expert say, well, there's just a terrible limit on how much electricity we can generate from the wind and the sun, I think I'll scream. The Energy Department in the Bush administration issued a report 2 years ago that said, in theory, there's enough power blowing just from the Rio Grande River in West Texas to North Dakota's border with Canada in a swath about 100 miles wide to electrify America if we had an electrical grid that would carry the power. And one of the things I think that President-elect Obama and the Congress will do is to give us a new electrical grid, which will help everybody. But there will be jobs for people doing community service, like the city folks here. There will be jobs for low-income people who've been laid off from construction. You read the last jobs report, the biggest drop is in construction jobs. You want those people to go back to work? Support the most ambitious possible building retrofit program that the governor recommends. These are the kinds of things we have to do. But I'm telling you, it is the key to America's future, and it is key to whether our children and grandchildren have a planet worth living on. And don't be deterred by the price going down. I promise you, when the economy comes up, the price will explode unless we don't need it anymore. And finally, I want to applaud you, Governor, for making your national security point. It's been a source of great concern to me that when oil was $140 a barrel, we were borrowing money every month to cover our deficits and buy oil. You know, oil purchases are half of our trade deficit typically. We would hardly have any trade deficit if we didn't have to buy oil. We just used our own, and will always have some usage for oil because there's so many products that are built on an oil platform. But, you know, I think if we made up our minds, we could all be tootling around in electric cars within 8 to 10 years. And we wouldn't have to worry what other people did that might choke off the lifeblood of America, and we could have a foreign policy that reflects our values and our interests and what we think is noble and good and right for people throughout the world, and not be compromised because we think somebody can strangle us because we have been too foolish to do what is manifestly in the interest of our country today, and especially the young people here. So this is a big deal. And I'm telling you, I wish I could say that in all 50 states, the governor could stand up and give a speech like Mike Beebe just did, but I can't say that. You know how lucky you are to have legislative leaders and a governor that care about this, that see it, and I want you to support them in every way you can. Thank you very much.
Everyone is as excited about this opportunity as I am, and that everyone in this room will be engaged. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful weekend.